It is now my honor to invite MK Yuli Edelstein, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. He will sit for a conversation with Dr. Idit Shafran Gittelman, who is a senior researcher here at the INSS. Hello to the Chairman of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, members of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein. Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the organizers. I didn't actually plan to start with the law of recruitment mobilizing because we have quite a record. But yesterday we finished the discussion at the committee, and I recommend you to go to after the discussions at the committees because there everything else that you don't hear in the discussion. And people started saying, will there not be a law? And people told me, you're just a dreamer. And some people came later and said what he said. And I will tell you what we all heard at the mobile push. My optimism true opportunity to pass a true legislation of recruitment. So if you are optimistic, I would love you to share that with us, because the question we all asked is, why are you feeling more optimistic about it? Optimism is not confidence, complete confidence. I mean, there were ups and downs about this. And I must tell you that, take as an example, the optimism comes, amongst other things, because I heard at the beginning when I saw the law for the first time, the cafeteria statements, Yuli, we believe in your good intentions and that what you're saying is correct and that you will not allow this to pass. But there won't be a law at the end. And now the discourse has changed. At the beginning, the IDF spoke at the higher court about 3,000 recruits. The members of the Knesset took that like it was a great treasure and grasped on that. And now the discourse, not to say that it's excellent, but 4,800 during the first year, 5,760 the next year after that, sanctions, institutional sanctions, individual sanctions. This is the discourse now. So therefore, I'm saying that it's all now centralizing, and there are still so many gaps, even between myself and the Ministry of Defense, not to Orthodox parties. But I think that with the right work being done, and if we know to disconnect little politics like budget first or the recruitment law first, or if we really work on the recruitment law, then we will manage to also pass a real legislation. If you could please maintain the silence in the hall. Thank you. I will try to continue to pick up from exactly what you just said. And I'll give you another citation, this time from the Prime Minister, who said very clearly and precisely these words as a response to a question he was asked: how can we be crumbling with the reserves being it's burdened and there is no legislation? From the audience, they are not speaking to microphones. I'm sorry. I cannot hear what they said. Thank you. He said this when truly the IDF said the magic number 3,000, and I think all of us we cannot understand that they meant to hold on to that. And he said we need to have a legislation. We need to do it according to the IDF needs. As many that the IDF can recruit, it's not determined by politicians, but rather by the IDF, and this should be the guideline. And after that, IDF said very clearly, starting 2026, I can recruit all of them. Why for so many hours? Why is it not finished? The IDF said by 2026, I can recruit everyone. Why don't we have a law legislated saying everybody's recruited starting 2026? When you said that there are disagreements, this is one of them, because I also said more than once that my guideline, what I see in front of me, is not political needs. And even during the first meeting, I said I'm not here to strengthen the coalition or to dismantle this coalition. I want a law that would provide fighters for the IDF, because the reservists and their families are really burdened, and they're asking us to prolong the regular service to the IDF, and we do need to broaden the amount of recruited. But the devil is in the details. It's so easy to say tomorrow we'll finish everything, and then only on the third year we start the disagreement. No, this is not so. If we don't have, as the head of the manpower department of the IDF said, if we don't have sanctions on the individual level, even those numbers that I'm now bringing, the IDF is saying for 4,600, 5,600, they would probably not exist. We need to be accurate. Not with every clause, with every word of the law. I want to say one more thing and then we need to move on because I want to also talk about other things with IDF. It's not ever since the IDF pronounced those numbers, I think that in a very inappropriate way, representatives of the ministry, the IDF said is not the right thing, and because it doesn't go in line with the political causes, then they are saying, no, IDF can't do it. IDF doesn't really mean it. And I just want to cite the last data that we picked up that about 64% the Jewish public is saying without a law, without the law of exemption or law that would exempt most of the ultra-Orthodox from service, it will weaken the motivation to serve for the IDF. And I think that the legislation that is about to happen will indeed exempt most of the ultra-Orthodox from the IDF service. And it will happen under your term of office in the committee. And so I'm probably one of those 68% that you mentioned. I don't call it the law of disobedience. And when during past 6 months, I think I knew when I politician colleagues, but also with the MOD, also with the IDF, difficult conversations because I had at some point the feeling that the IDF is going back to what was familiar to them, which is just sending those invitations to recruitment to the people who anyway would show up. And this hot potato of recruiting the ultra-Orthodox, they just push it away. They didn't send any letters of recruitment to the ultra-Orthodox. Well, they did, but not enough, I think, because I know the statistics, how many people actually show up from every 100 letters of recruitment. I mean, we have the fighters, we have the supporting soldiers, but let's this, the law that will come committee will only be a law that is accorded by IDF, not something that goes around, not pretend. This is again, you take the IDF to hold them responsible for it fully agreed law. It's the decision of the state to divide the burden. Let me tell you this in two phrases. I had a group, a very distinguished group of people. Some of them were used to be high and recruitment and them with a smile on my face, but I did tell them it's not a good outline. Why? They said, why it's not good? What's wrong? And I said, because I agree with every word. If I agree with every word in the outline, it's probably not practical because for me, everyone on the 120 members of the Knesset, I need to pass it. And those reservists you see in the committee, they say openly, we support a good law, but people already at me and don't. How long can we discuss, keep discussing and discussing and discussing? We need to bring a result. We need to bring people who are candidates for recruitment that will recruit and lower at least some of the burden from the reservists. I see the clock, so we should continue this argument in the committee, but I feel uncomfortable about the intention to let the IDF be responsible because this is dragging the IDF. No. I have to correct this times too, and as the former chairman of the Knesset as well, it's clearly that it's the political echelon will determine, but the by the manpower department of the IDF, by the chief of the general staff and his vice, by people who know exactly what they need and where they need it. So a societal change of such volume is not something that I ask the IDF to perform. So I'm not a journalist and I can't get any titles from you if I ask elegantly. So I will ask two very direct questions. I have said the discussions held here in the morning, different angles, different worlds. So we have two things now online that are really bothering and concerning the public. One is firing the Attorney General and the other is firing the Shin Bet. Where do you stand? I will start with the second question. As one who, according to the law, once again, supervise the activity of the Shin Bet. I am in the head of the Shin Bet and with the organization. Generally, I think that they do wonderful work. I have not heard of any plans to fire him, and I don't think that, I think it would be very healthy. It will be very healthy that in such situation where we are now at, the head of Shin Bet, Ronen, will finish his role when he decides to finish his role. And I think that this is something that is there. Regarding the I'll tell you this. I have many question marks regarding many things, including the law of recruitment, as you also heard in the committee, and I would prefer things to be dealt with a bit differently when it comes to that topic, but how do people? I have enough challenges of my own. I am not a minister in the government. I know exactly why I'm not a minister in the government, which is why it's the government to decide what they're going to do with the Attorney General. It's not my business. I want to take you back to discussions from the committee. We had a sideline discussion about the National Inquiry Committee, and you lost your calm, and you honestly said, and I'm sure that nobody doubts your honesty. You can't really fake this. You can't fake the look in your eyes. And when people said, inquiry committee, and I want to tell you that 64% of the public said that they do support a national inquiry committee that will be appointed by the president of the High Court, because we use those words, and only 10% said that they support an inquiry committee that will be appointed by the. Ask yourself, and maybe you didn't mean for everyone to hear it, how did we come to this point where we don't have public trust for any entity to be head Inquiry Committee? And I want to ask you, maybe this is the time, thinking backwards on all the moves before October 7th regarding the judicial reform. Maybe we exaggerated, maybe we took it too far, maybe we went wrong. And now, because this week, in fact, the legislation still goes on. While we are speaking here, the legislation that tore the public apart and brought people out to the streets, maybe in what do you think about it in retrospect, and also about the legislation process is still taking place in the Knesset as we speak? Look, first of all, the gaps are quite small between what I say to the mic and what I say off record. I don't mean intimate personal things, but public things that I have to say. So therefore, when I said during that committee meeting that we should ask ourselves how did we come to this point, I knew very well that it was broadcast. And here as well, I have no problem repeating that with much pain, because I remember, one, until this very day, of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein, and that person that I am talking about, myself, sat with at least 3 different presidents, including male and female. I said, we are running very fast in the wrong direction. We should start a formal committee, maybe formal, maybe less formal, with the representatives of the court and of the public and of the government and professional clerks. If you want elected members, just tell me what you do want. Otherwise, we will find ourselves in very bad places. And well, apparently prophecy belongs to the fools, and I'm probably a very big fool, because we did end up here. I understood where we were headed, but we came to this point where we got to because of what? Because there was no discussion, no dialogue, no agreement. But wasn't it a mistake to push the trust so far that to bring us to this point? And isn't it a mistake now to continue? But I want to tell you this: I was invited as the chairman of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and I'm not trying to avoid what you're asking, but it's a different conversation. And I just want to tell you that everyone at any relevant role in politics, in courthouse, in the media, in the different professions should go home, take a good look at themselves, and ask themselves. Also do search after that, Google search you can take, or YouTube search. And I spoke in the attorneys' conference exactly about, amongst other things, I also talked about the fact that every proposal change in the legal system and correct tiniest little thing that is not right, immediately these people are called fascist or bandit or whatever, criminal. So each one should take a good look at themselves and ask themselves, how did we come to what we came during 2023? So I can see that we are asked to finish, but regarding that self-reflection, the IDF is about to present the inquiries that it held. And I want to ask you, what is your committee's place in this regarding this? Should you also inquire your committee's dealings until October 7th? So many months of war. Your committee, is it really doing its job? Who's going to check that? So first of all, I think that the funniest thing that will happen is if I start, giving grades to myself. Did I do my job well? Did I do it right? For which I support a national inquiry. One of them mentioned, because it is said percentage of support from the public trust. Amongst all the different options that we have on the table, a national inquiry committee does get the most points, let's say the most percentage in any survey anywhere. In order to lower the applause, thank you very much. In order to lower the applause, I will also add immediately that I learned about several people who are formerly from the high court who to views and thinking about them as people who will investigate in this committee. It scares me, surprises me. But and the second reason I think that such a committee should be founded is that I think as long as I'm chairing the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committees, that the protocols of the subcommittees will only be seen by the National Inquiry Committee, and no other entity, respectable as it may be, will not go and look into these agents and state secrets. This is where I stand. We must finish. I want to thank you for coming here, and also to thank you for the way you have been listening to the bereaved families, to the families of the hostages in the different committees. Unfortunately, this is not something that we just take as something that goes without saying. So thank you very much. Thank you.